My son-in-law sneered, "Plumbers don't belong here," as I wiped my hands on a rag, standing on the teak deck of a $2.75 million yacht he thought I had rented. The brass compass gleamed under the Newport sun, waves striking the hull, and my chest burned with humiliation. He didn't know the yacht was mine, or that one hidden camera and one document would turn everything upside down. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. I sat alone in the living room of my small house in Providence, the late afternoon sunlight spilling across the wedding photograph of Helen. The glass of the frame caught the fading gold of the day, and her smile looked almost alive for a moment, as if she could step right out of that picture and sit beside me. The floor beneath me creaked softly, the hardwood I had laid down myself decades ago, one plank at a time, back when Helen and I dreamed of raising Emily in a home filled with warmth and memories. The faint smell of coffee from a pot long gone cold in the kitchen lingered like a ghost. Next to my old recliner sat a box of files, papers I had tucked away carefully over the years, proof of every sacrifice, every check, every signature. The house was quiet except for the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway, and in that silence the memories pressed against me like a weight. I thought of Emily, my daughter, and how much I had poured into her life. $60,000 for graduate school, business school no less, paid out of my savings. $30,000 each year for 2 years, money I had pulled together by cashing out part of my retirement account, telling myself it was worth it because education was something no one could take from her. I remembered the way her eyes lit up when she got the acceptance letter, how she hugged me so tight I thought my ribs might crack. I told her then that no matter what, I would always be in her corner. And then there was the wedding. I can still see the hall, covered in white roses, the sound of a string quartet echoing through the room. $27,500. That's what I wrote on the check to cover the venue, the flowers, and the photographer. I told myself it was the least I could do to give my daughter the day she had dreamed of, even though Caleb's parents barely contributed a dime. Helen was already gone by then, and I thought maybe, just maybe, giving Emily such a beautiful day would heal something in both of us. I had given them $60,000 more when Caleb claimed he was cash-strapped and needed a down payment for their house. He came to me, looking embarrassed, spinning a story about business expenses and bad timing. I didn't hesitate. I wrote the check, convincing myself that helping them build a home would give Emily the stability she deserved. On top of that, all the little rescues added up over the years. $4,800 for car repairs when their transmission died. $3,200 for medical bills when Caleb sprained his back. $1,900 for a refrigerator when theirs broke down in the middle of summer. 10 years of helping, of stepping in, of keeping them afloat. About $145,000 in all, carefully noted in my records, though I never intended to call those debts. They were gifts, love made tangible through checks and wire transfers, sacrifices I believed would bind us as a family. I looked at Helen's picture and whispered, "You see, I tried. I tried to hold us together with checks, with dollar signs, with anything I could give." My voice cracked, and I let the silence answer me, because deep down I knew Helen would have warned me. She always said Caleb's eyes were too sharp, too calculating. She said he smiled too quickly, too often, like a salesman who never drops the act. The yacht was supposed to be different. 42 feet of shining white fiberglass, polished chrome fittings that gleamed like mirrors in the sun, a mahogany dining table in the cabin that smelled of warm wood and salt air. It was my dream made real, paid for with Helen's life insurance policy and the investments we had slowly, patiently built together. $2.75 million of value, certified with the Coast Guard, the documentation tucked safely in my safe. The hull identification number was engraved at the stern, a mark of permanence. That yacht was meant to be more than a vessel. I named her Serenity because I wanted her to be a place where Emily and I could find peace again. But instead of peace, I found cracks. Emily's eyes no longer met mine when Caleb spoke. He would smirk, tossing little comments like scraps on the table. She called me Ron, sometimes Dan, never Dad, always with that undertone of dismissal. He talked about managing assets for the old man, as if I were incompetent, as if I didn't know how to handle my affairs. He laughed at the thought of me navigating finances, mocked the idea that I still had control. I heard him whisper once about how it was only a matter of time before we get the papers signed. He didn't know I had heard, or maybe he didn't care. I thought back to when Emily was 8 years old. I had taken her to the lake, shown her how to tie a line around a cleat and how to secure the rope so the boat wouldn't drift away. Her hands were small, fumbling at the knot, but her eyes were bright, eager to learn. I had crouched beside her, guiding her fingers, telling her she was strong and capable. Now the memory stung like salt in a wound, because the girl who once clung to me for guidance now clung to a man who tore me down with every word. Around me, the living room glowed with fading light, and I saw the pieces of my life reflected at me. The fireplace with Helen's and my wedding photo on the mantel, the brass pocket watch that belonged to my father, ticking faintly, its chain coiled like a memory of time itself. I reached for the keys to Serenity, hanging on a carved wooden hook near the door, the word Serenity etched deep into the grain. I had bought that yacht not to show off wealth, not to impress anyone, but to heal, to give Emily something beautiful after losing her mother, to give myself a way to keep us together. The more I thought, the more the fog of hurt began to burn away. They didn't need more money. They didn't need another check, another bailout, another sacrifice. What they needed, though they didn't realize it yet, were boundaries. I could feel the shift inside me, the crackle of something harder than grief. My fingers found the edge of the safe under the desk, and I opened it. There, stacked neatly, were the papers that proved the truth. The bill of sale, the insurance documents, and his certificate of documentation. My name etched on every page, my ownership undeniable. The power I thought I had lost was right there, bound in paper and ink, waiting for me to claim it. I whispered again to Helen, softer this time. They think I'm weak. They think I've handed over everything. But you know, don't you? You know I still hold the reins. And in that moment, I believed her smile in the photograph shifted, as if she were nodding in agreement. The pain inside me coiled tighter, then hardened into something else. Resolve. I reached for my phone, scrolled to the number I hadn't called in months, and pressed the button. When Elaine Brooks answered, her voice was calm, professional, like it always had been. "Elaine," I said quietly, "I may need to secure the title and restrict access. Can we meet tomorrow?" She didn't ask for details. She never did. She simply said, "Of course, 10 a.m., and hung up. I slipped a small USB drive, empty but ready, into my pocket. 128 gigabytes. Enough to hold the camera footage if I needed it, enough to carry proof. My hands trembled as I closed the safe, not from fear this time, but from anticipation. The clock in the hallway chimed 6, and the sound filled the house like a drumbeat. I looked around at the familiar walls, the worn furniture, the echoes of a life I had built with Helen, and I realized something with absolute clarity. They thought I was done. They thought they could strip me down to nothing but an old man, tired and used up. But they were wrong. I sat back in the recliner, the box of files heavy beside me, and let the words form in my chest before I spoke them aloud. "They think I'm weak," I said, my voice low but steady. "They will soon find out how wrong they are." If you're still watching and find this story interesting, please comment 1 below to let me know you're here with me. The breeze at Newport Marina smelled of salt and diesel and made my mind settle. Serenity waited in her slip, teak warm, chrome bright. I had invited my family for a short ride, but what I needed was open air and honest light. I had remembered enough. Today, I would act. Caleb stepped aboard first, easy and loud on the deck. He slid his hand across the navigation panel and grinned. "This nav panel cost more than you make in a year." Emily followed and kept her eyes down. Gordon cleared his throat. Louise gave me a careful smile. I told everyone to come below. The salon was ready, lemon oil on the mahogany table, crystal glasses by a bucket of chilled Pinot Grigio, the bottle sweating. The cabin lights were warm. I poured slowly, set each glass down the way I set tools back where they belong. Caleb watched me like a man humoring an act. I excused myself and went up to check a line. The rope was fine. The sound that floated up next was wrong, metal grinding in a slow twist. I stepped back down. In the galley, Caleb braced himself at the sink and forced the faucet. The fixture shuddered and gave with a hard crack. A thin, bright stream burst and drummed across the counter. "Uh-oh," he called cheerfully. "Looks like the rental company gave us a tired part." He dabbed at the water with a towel, unhurried. Emily rushed in to blot the mess. Gordon grabbed more towels. Louise asked about a shutoff. I put my thumb at the base of the faucet and felt the edge where chrome met steel. Fresh plier bites, new half-moons pressed into the finish. I turned the handle. The valve grated. The water insisted. This was not worn. It was a wound. Caleb leaned on the counter and met my eyes. His smile looked kind. "Daniel must have tried to help earlier. See the scratches?" Emily glanced from the faucet to my hands. "Dad," she asked quietly, "did you try to fix it and break it?" The question landed heavily. I saw her at 8, waiting for my nod at the lake. The picture passed. I swallowed what I wanted to rise. "Let me handle it," I said. I kept my tone level and let the words repeat inside until they were steady. I closed the shutoff under the sink and told them I needed to check something. The small navigation room sits behind the salon, a place most guests forget. The monitors woke in a blue-white wash. 8 cameras, clean angles, good audio. Serenity remembers. I slid the timeline to 3:50 p.m. On camera 3, Caleb stepped in. He turned the faucet gently. Water on, water off. Smooth. He glanced toward the door, gripped hard, braced a foot, wrenched the handle again and again. At 3:54, the valve snapped and the spray leaped. He watched the water run, wiped with a towel, and put on a face that looked like concern. He left. I saved the clip to the USB in my pocket. The file name stamped itself clearly. Cam 3155023 MP4. I watched the first seconds again, not from doubt, but because certainty calms a man. I touched the drive. Small thing, full truth. I called Elaine Brooks. "If I need to revoke any planned gift, what's the cleanest path?" I asked. She said my title was clear and the documentation solid. She would prepare a revocation and no transfer notice and draft a no-access letter to the marina. "Use the language we discussed last year," I said. "Already open," she replied. We hung up. The monitors hummed like a vow. Back in the salon, Gordon had wrapped towels around the base like a medic. Louise held a roll of paper towels. Emily stood tight-lipped. Caleb lounged with his glass, pleased with himself. I emailed the marina office and asked them to update the authorized access list. Remove Emily Hart and Caleb Hart, effective immediately. I copied the dockmaster and requested that security keep an eye on my slip. I opened the drawer with the ship's packet. The USCG Certificate of Documentation lay on top with my name printed where it belongs. The insurance declarations followed, policy number beginning 7C. Below them sat the bill of sale and the wire confirmation with dates and amounts that do not lie. I put the packet back exactly as it had been. Touching paper you own steadies the hands. Caleb watched me with bright curiosity. "Everything good, Captain?" he said, letting the word hang like a little joke. "We're fine," I told him. He nodded at the sink and said it was lucky this hadn't happened at night. He talked about rental outfits that cut corners because weekend sailors won't notice. He said it while the chrome still showed the bite of his pliers and the towel he used to tidy the evidence lay damp on the counter. I cleaned because cleaning makes room to think. I wiped the countertop and the cabinet face and the floor. The trickle slowed to a stubborn drip. I could replace the valve later. My hands were steady. That steadiness told me hurt had given way to discipline. I said I needed to drop a note at the office and stepped ashore. The dock smelled of salt, diesel, and tarred rope. A boy rolled by on a bicycle and lifted a hand. When I came back, the light had turned to honey. The rigging on the next boat chimed. I paused at the companionway and listened. Caleb told a story about a coworker who panicked during a market dip and sold at the bottom. He laughed at the moral. Some people aren't built for numbers, he said. Emily gave a quick practiced smile. Gordon stared at the table's shine. Louise sipped her wine like medicine. I went down and sat across from him. I set the bottle back into the ice and let the quiet gather until everyone could hear it. Curious thing about boats, I said, like pointing to a buoy. They record everything. It did not sound like a threat. It sounded true. Caleb's smirk twitched and then held. Emily glanced at me and looked away. Gordon lifted his chin. Louise folded her hands. Caleb tried to be polite. "Maintenance logs?" he asked, smiling. I said logs, and other records too. I did not say cameras. Silence is a wedge. It finds seams. He spoke about old fittings that fail and amateur fixes that make things worse, and how, of course, no one blamed anyone. He shaped the air as if he could turn the story before it hardened. I told Emily I needed to send a quick message and returned to the navigation room. The monitor showed Caleb's hands on the handle, his foot braced, the timestamp steady at the bottom. I checked the USB again. Cam 35523 MP4 waited. I slid the drive into the inner pocket of my vest and closed the zipper. Elaine's text arrived a moment later. "Drafting now. Will email for signature within the hour." I replied with thank you. The period at the end felt like a nail driven clean. The fans turned. The monitors hummed. Back in the salon, Gordon asked about the autopilot and how it reads wind and keeps a course. I showed him. Louise asked about the table's wood. I told her mahogany, old stock, hand-finished. Emily said she was sorry about the faucet and that maybe the rental company would cover the repair. She meant comfort. She missed the mark. I told her it would be handled. Caleb stretched and said weekends were good for pretending, richer, poorer, wiser, humbler, whatever story the room wants. He said it lightly. Gordon's chair scraped the smallest inch, the sound of a man drawing a line in his head. I folded the towel and set it aside. I checked the shutoff and the handle so my hands had work. I washed and dried them. Ritual turns a page without tearing it. The day had found its shape. Hurt stayed, but it did not steer. Focus did. I counted the moves already made. The clip on the USB, the email to the marina, the notices Elaine would send, the documents in the drawer. The gap between helpless and ready is a few small steps done in order. I had taken them. I brought everyone to the bow for the last light. We watched gulls quarrel over nothing and the water go from bright to pewter to slate. Emily slipped her arm through Caleb's. Gordon and Louise stood close together, patient people taking a measure. Caleb sighed like the evening belonged to him. He said no one would believe this wasn't a rental if they saw the faucet. He chuckled and added, it would be a shame if someone paid rental company prices for a simple fix. He looked at the horizon while he said it. When the air cooled, we went below. I set out crackers, cheese, olives, and a few thin slices of smoked salmon. We ate without ceremony. I told a short story about a storm near Block Island and how the boat taught me to move with the water. Caleb answered with a story about a client who sold during a dip and bought back higher. He laughed at the math. Emily's smile came and went. Outside, the marina lights clicked on. Inside, the salon glowed. I cleared plates, rinsed knives, and stood the glasses in a line. Then I rested my hands on the chair back and looked across the table. Curious thing about boats, they record everything, I said again, as simply as a depth. Caleb lifted his brows. Do they? He said. Then I hope they recorded the rental company's last repair. I smiled because my decision no longer wavered. My thumb found the small pocket of my vest and the cool rectangle inside. They didn't know what I had set in motion. They didn't know what I was holding. They don't know I already hold the proof that will change everything. If you're still watching and find this story interesting, please comment 2 below to let me know you're here with me. Sunlight slid through the round window and put a pale coin of light on the mahogany table. I set my tablet beside the glasses and let my hand rest on it for a breath. Calm helps truth land. A quiet room carries a heavy truth. "Let's take a look at something," I said. Gordon leaned back a little. Louise folded her hands. Emily's fingers found the edge of her napkin. Caleb kept his stage smile. I opened the gallery and tapped the file. The speakers gave a soft hiss. Camera 3. The angle looked down the galley. The timestamp burned in the corner. 3:50 p.m. Caleb stepped into frame. He turned the faucet right, then left. Water came. Water stopped. Smooth. He glanced toward the doorway, the sly glance of a man counting beats before a cue. I let it play. He set his foot against the cabinet base, wrapped both hands around the handle, and wrenched. The audio caught the dry grind of metal against metal like sand in a hinge. He paused, then wrenched again, harder. At 3:54, the valve let go, and the water hissed across the counter. He checked his work with a small breath. He probably thought no one would hear. He tore a towel from the bar and wiped the base with care, sweeping away the tiny curls of... No one spoke, only the soft tap of water in the towels. Louise broke first. "Oh my God," she said. Gordon's jaw tightened, then his eyes slid to his son and stayed there. Emily's hands trembled, the napkin twisting in her grip. "It's an old rental," Caleb said quickly. He lifted his glass as if to prove how calm he was. "I barely touched it. You can hear the corrosion." The smile missed his eyes. I tapped the screen and froze the frame where his foot braced and his hands bore down. The picture held him in the act, effort in his shoulders, intent on his face. "You barely touched it," I said, even. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. He shrugged. "People make mistakes," he said. "Sometimes cameras do too. The angle makes it look worse than it was." He tried a laugh. No one joined him. Louise looked at the screen, then at him. "Caleb," she said softly, and that was all. A son hears that tone only a few times in a lifetime. He switched lanes. "Why do we have this much surveillance on a pleasure boat?" he said. "Who wires a yacht like a convenience store? Daniel, are you spying on your family?" He gave Emily a quick look to draw her in. "Who does that to his daughter?" Emily's eyes filled. "Dad," she whispered, "did you set this up to monitor us?" Hurt sat under the words. It pushed against me harder than anger. I felt Helen in my mind, the way you feel a hand on your shoulder in a storm. I met my daughter's eyes. "I installed cameras to protect my property from thieves," I said. "Family or not." It was not a threat. It was a boundary. Before I could say more, he tapped the edge of the tablet with one finger, the casual kind of touch that tries to claim space. I moved it an inch away. He began to talk about privacy and trust, as if the camera were the sin and not the hands that twisted steel. "Privacy is not a cover for sabotage," I said. "Respect does not ask me to pretend I did not see." Emily looked at the window and blinked. I watched her swallow. I could hear the old arguments building in her. Keep peace. Be grateful. Do not embarrass anyone. She learned those songs in our house. Kindness is not the enemy here. Confusion is. Caleb ran his hand along the chrome like a man blessing the injured. "If this were my boat," he said, "I would be embarrassed that a guest had to deal with it." He let the words hang, hoping debt would form out of the air. I let the silence work. The boat groaned softly as a swell rolled under her. Gordon cleared his throat and then did not speak. Louise pressed her napkin flat with both hands. "Emily," Caleb said at last gently, "this is why I worry about your dad's finances. He buys a rental with cameras and gold trim, and then everyone has to pretend it makes sense." He looked at me. "We could help you, Daniel. You do not have to do all this alone." The kindness in his voice was a costume. He was counting on Emily's soft heart to do the rest. 8 cameras, I said, installed after thefts in this marina, recorded to a drive in the helm locker, motion and audio, signs posted per the insurance writer. I pointed to the small sticker near the companionway. We do not hide what the boat can see. He waved that off with a soft laugh. Insurance, he said, as if the word itself were a trick. Emily looked at the sticker and then back at the screen and then at me. I did not see it, she said. You were not meant to, Caleb answered for her. He set this up to catch us. He cast his line again. Who does that to his daughter? I set it up to catch whoever needed catching, I said. Family or not? I kept my tone steady. Steady is the one color a bully cannot wear. Caleb latched onto the word property. Exactly, he said. Rental property, old gear, loose fittings. We're lucky no one got hurt when it failed. His hand shook a little. He put the glass down before he spilled it. I closed the video and slid the tablet aside. I pulled a slim folder from my satchel and set it on the table. Manila, clean, edges square. I opened it and fanned the documents like a dealer lays cards face up, so nobody has to guess what is in play. Bill of sale. Certificate from the Coast Guard with a registration number that matches the one on the stern. Insurance declarations, the policy starting with 7C. A wire confirmation dated March 22nd for $2,750,000. Caleb stared at the papers as if they were props. He did not reach for them. He did not look away. It's good to keep records, he said. The rental company probably leaves copies aboard to reassure people. He tried a small laugh. No one joined him. Gordon took a slow breath. He did not touch anything. Those are in your name, he said to me, not a question. In my name, I answered. I did not add what that meant. Not yet. Caleb spread his hands. Whatever this is, it's a private dispute, he said. We can call the marina and have a tech swap the valve. I'll even pay for it. It's a small thing. It is not a small thing, Gordon said. He spoke like a man who has taken the measure of his son and does not admire the cut. Emily looked from face to face. Maybe we can just go back up on deck, she said. We could watch the sunset and talk about this later. She reached for the folder. Her fingers lingered on the corner. Leave the papers, I said gently. We will use them soon enough. The boat creaked. The clock on the bulkhead ticked. Caleb went back to the attack he liked best. I'm sorry your dad felt the need to set up gotcha cameras, he said to Emily. It's invasive. It's unhealthy. It's not normal. He turned to me. If you wanted to humiliate me, congratulations. You made your point. But we're family. We can be better than this. He wanted to make it about manners. I did not let him move the subject. You broke something that was not yours, I said. You lied. You leaned on the one person I love most to make the lie look true. I kept my voice quiet. Quiet can land heavier than a shout. He flushed along the neck. You're making this bigger than it is, he said. It's water on a counter, that's all. Louise closed her eyes. It was not water on a counter when you set your foot and forced the handle, she said. It was not water on a counter when you wiped the metal dust away. I was testing it, he said. I wanted to help. He spread his hands, palms up. I slid the wire confirmation where the light could touch it. I did not read the numbers. The ink spoke for itself. I placed the Coast Guard document on top. The seal caught the window's brightness. I rested my fingertips on the page the way a captain rests a hand on the wheel when the tide turns. From this point on, I said, we will let the record speak. He leaned forward as if to argue, but the paper between us changed the room. Habit and bluff had met a thing they could not push. He stood up, then sat down. You know how this looks, he said to Emily. A man your father's age, alone, buying a yacht and wiring it for surveillance. That is not normal, Em. It's not safe. She wiped her eyes. I don't know what normal is anymore, she said. A father hears that and understands the work ahead. I reached for my phone and opened the email from Elaine. Drafts attached. I read the first line of the revocation and no transfer notice in a voice that carried. Under ownership evidenced by the enclosed documents, any contemplated transfer or gift is withdrawn in full, effective immediately. I stopped there, not to wound, but to set a path that walked straight. Caleb laughed, a short, broken sound. "You had this ready?" he said. "You came here to stage a scene and shove a letter at us? That's control, Daniel. That's not love." He looked at Emily. "He wants to own us. He wants to make us afraid to breathe wrong." "I want my house to be my house," I said. "I want my boat to be my boat. I want my name to mean what it says on paper. That is not control. That is the order." He reached as if to take the letter, then drew his hand back as if the page might burn. Gordon spoke then, not to me, not to Emily, but to the room. "Truth is not surveillance," he said. "Truth is the thing you see when you stop talking. We saw the truth on that screen." Caleb tried anger full on. "You always liked him better," he snapped at his father. It sounded thin, like a string pulled past tune. I slid the folder closed, then opened it again. "We will finish this in daylight," I said. "We will finish this on paper." I could feel the next chapter the way a boat feels a shift in wind before a flag stirs. Emily stood. "I need air," she said. She went up to the deck. Louise followed. Gordon stayed. Caleb did not move. I waited. The clock ticked. The water tapped the hull. A gull cried. He finally tried reason. "If you go through with this, you break the family," he said. "People will think you lost your grip. They'll say you're hoarding money to punish us." "They can think what they like," I said. "I will know the truth. I will sleep." He sat back and started writing a new story in his head. Emily returned and sat. Her face had the washed look people wear after a wave knocks them down and they decide to stand anyway. "Dad," she said quietly, "I want to believe you." "You don't have to believe me tonight," I said. "You do have to see." I turned the tablet toward her and rewound to the moment before Caleb set his foot. I tapped pause and let her look at his face. "You can tell a lot about a person in the 3 seconds before an act that matters." She watched. She nodded. It was the start of seeing. Louise asked for water. I poured her a glass. The cabin smelled like lemon oil and salt and a faint trace of wine. The last light faded from the window. Night pressed its cool hand against the glass. I put the papers back in the satchel. They did not weigh much, but the room felt different with them hidden again. Truths settled gravity around them. Caleb stood. "I need to make a call," he said. He went up to the deck. His footsteps on the teak were short and quick. He talked low into his phone. The wind carried fragments, optics, narrative. Get ahead of it. He did not know the Marina office had already received my message. He did not know the access list would change before midnight. Gordon looked at me the way one man looks at another when something final has clicked. "Thank you," he said. He did not explain for what. When Caleb returned, he wore patience that felt like a strategy. "We'll all cool off," he said. "We'll handle the repair. We'll move past this." He looked at Emily as if the sentence could move them past it. She did not answer. I told them we were done for the night. Tomorrow afternoon, right here, with clear heads and clean pages. I would bring what needed signing. Caleb's eyes flickered. We climbed to the deck. The marina lights threw little rivers across the black water. A line creaked somewhere in the dark. Louise put a hand on Emily's shoulder. Gordon stood close to his wife. Caleb stood a few feet off, practicing calm. We said good night. I watched them walk the dock until the shadows took them. I went below and washed the last of the chrome dust from the rag. I set the rag on the rail, even and square. The phone buzzed. Elaine's email arrived with the final drafts, executed upon signature. I read the letter through once, then again. Clear language gives a man courage. It also gives him peace. I signed with my finger on the screen, slow and careful. I sent the signatures back with one word. Proceed. The reply came 3 minutes later. Notices transmitted. Marina confirmed receipt. Dock security will update the list before closing. Copies would be couriered to my house in the morning. The timestamp on the email looked like a brass plate on a door. I called the Marina night office and spoke to Joel, the manager with the Red Sox cap. I gave him the hull number and the slip, B-17. He read back the new access list and removed 2 names while I listened to the clack of his keyboard. He confirmed that their gate fobs would deactivate at 9 and that any attempt to enter would ping security. I asked him to note that only I, my attorney by appointment, and my guests, by my texted approval, could board. He said the note was in the log. I thanked him and ended the call. Then I slid the USB with the clip into the little safe behind the helm panel, turned the dial, and felt that small click of certainty. Paper, video, and policy. 3 oars in the same boat, pulling the same way. It felt clean. I went topside and stood with the night. Across the way, someone laughed. A radio played a low oldies station. I rested my hands on the rail and let the salt air find my lungs. Tomorrow would bring the rest. The folder would be on the table. The line between pretend and true would be drawn in ink. I would say we need to correct the record. I would say what belongs to whom. I would say it in the light. For now, I let the quiet fill me. I pictured Helen at the bow, her hair pulled back against the breeze. I told her softly that I was doing what we promised we would do for Emily. We would teach her how to tie a proper knot. A knot is not a trap. It is a way to keep a good thing from drifting away. I went below, turned off the lights, and left a small one on near the steps. I set the tablet on the table. I set the satchel beside it. The clock ticked, steady as a heart that has decided. The boat rocked once, twice, and then held. Morning would bring signatures and sentences and the click of a latch that has waited to catch. Morning would bring a page turned clean, and a daughter who would see more clearly, and a son-in-law who would learn that grown men do not get to break what they do not own and call it a lesson. Morning would bring the relief of things named as they are. I closed my eyes. In that last float before sleep took hold, I traced the channel in my mind. Video secured, notices issued, access changed, documents in order. One phrase fit, like something carved to size. You keep saying rental, let's correct the record. I opened my eyes and set it to the empty room to hear how it sounded. Quiet, straight, enough. The words stayed, ready. Justice is not a show. It is a series of things done in the plainest way possible, in a light that leaves nothing out. If you're still watching and find this story interesting, please comment 3 below to let me know you're here with me. The salon still carried the echo of the storm. I could feel it in the grain of the wood, in the way the boat rocked on the tide, steady now, but marked by what had passed. Morning light spilled through the round window and gave the cabin a soft warmth. I stood with a cup of coffee in my hand and watched the steam drift upward, curling and breaking like thoughts that had not yet settled. I knew what had to be done. The line had been drawn the night before, but today I had to finish it. A man does not begin a thing like this and leave it half done. By noon, the footsteps returned on the teak above. I recognized the rhythm without looking up. Emily first, light and hesitant. Caleb, after, heavier, almost angry in its sound. Gordon and Louise followed, slower, side by side, carrying the weight of years, but also the patience of people who had weathered storms together. They descended the steps into the salon, and I felt the room shift with their presence. I poured water into 4 glasses and set them down on the table. 2 envelopes lay beside them, cream stock, heavy, unmistakably legal. I had chosen the paper for its weight. Sometimes truth needs a physical form, something you can feel between your fingers to know it will not bend. I began without flourish. "This is my yacht," I said. My voice did not rise. It did not falter. I paid $2,750,000 for her, in March, cash. The marina records, the insurance declarations, and the Coast Guard certificate all bear my name. I held the wire confirmation in the light so the numbers caught every eye. Money has its gravity when spoken slowly. Emily's lips parted, but no words came. Caleb shifted in his seat, trying for a casual shrug. "If this is about pride," he said, "you could have told us yesterday. We'd have raised a glass to you." He glanced at Emily, hoping she would follow his lead. "It's not about pride," I said. "It's about truth. It's about custody. It's about what belongs to me and what will not be taken by lies." I turned to Emily. "I had planned to gift Serenity to you, Emily. To both of you. I thought this boat could be where we built something new as a family. After yesterday, that plan is gone." Her eyes glistened, confusion and hurt written clearly across her face. "You were going to give us the boat," she whispered. I nodded. Caleb paled, his jaw tightening. The performance calm slipped for a moment. I slid the first sheet from the envelope and laid it flat. "This is a revocation and no transfer notice," I said. "Effective immediately. Any contemplated gift is withdrawn. No lease, no sale, no informal agreement exists. No one is authorized to represent me regarding this vessel." I placed the second document beside it. "This is the no-access letter sent to the marina. The authorized list has been updated. Your names are not on it." Caleb let out a sharp breath. "Over a faucet?" he asked, trying for mockery. "Over character," Gordon said quietly, not looking away from his son. His words landed harder than any shout could have. Emily sat down, her hands restless in her lap. "Dad, this hurts." "I know it does," I said, "but pain is not the same as injustice. What happened here was injustice. Today is a consequence." I told them I needed to put numbers on the table because numbers leave no fog. Tuition, $60,000. Wedding, $27.5. Down payment, $60 more. Emergencies, bills, broken machines, $4,800, $3,200, $1,900. About $145,000 in a decade, not counting the quiet gifts that softened weeks. "Kindness cannot be leveraged into power over me," I said. Caleb forced a weary sigh. "We were grateful. We are grateful. But gifts don't come with strings." "Gratitude doesn't come with vandalism," I answered, "and gifts don't give a claim over the giver. I'm not a bank that forgets whose name is on the account." He switched tactics, calling me paranoid, calling me an old man with too much boat, calling me controlling. He said I was teaching lessons for money. "Respect is not negotiable," I told him. "It is the entry fee to this room. It is not a teaching tool. It is the ground we stand on." I looked at Emily, my daughter, my only child. "Pack your things," I said gently. "This conversation continues through letters. Elaine will be copied on every word." "Dad, please," she said, her voice so small it made my chest ache. "I'm your daughter." "Daughter or not," I said, steady but not cruel. "Respect is non-negotiable. I love you, but I will not be mocked or managed in my own home, on my boat, or in my name." She nodded once, barely, and walked out. Caleb lingered, searching for a line that could save face. "You'll regret this," he said finally. "I did not use money to control a family," I said. "I used truth to stop a lie." When they left, the gate at the dock clicked shut. The sound was final, like a latch closing. I poured wine for Gordon, for Louise, for myself. We took the glasses to the deck where the harbor lay golden in late light. Boats drifted in even lines, gulls skimmed low over the water. Louise touched my arm and said, "Thank you for your kindness." Gordon simply repeated, "Over character," and it was enough. We shared a simple lunch, crackers, cheese, grapes. I repaired the faucet myself in 20 minutes. Water ran clean, silent. I laughed softly. Sometimes the fix is simple, though we forget until our hands remind us. As the sun set, peace slipped into the boat, quiet but sure. Justice, I thought, is simply letting consequences land where they belong. I said it aloud. The cabin seemed lighter for it. My phone buzzed. Elaine's message. Notices filed, Marina confirmed. Fobs deactivated, copies couriered. She added, clean record, solid footing. I looked at the brass compass near the helm. True north held steady. I smiled. That night I slept aboard. Not from fear, but because the marina's music, the creak of lines, the slap of water, the faint hum of a passing patrol boat, has always been a lullaby. At 2 a.m. I woke and whispered to Helen, "We did right today. We did right by our girl." In the morning, I ate oatmeal with honey, just as Helen liked it. I checked my accounts, steady, untouched. Peace, plain as numbers on a screen. At 10, Emily texted, "Dad, may we talk? Just us?" I read it 3 times. My reflex was to say yes, but I remembered the line I drew. I wrote back, "We can talk with Elaine present. I will not discuss the boat or money without counsel. I hope you slept." 1 hour later, she sent a single heart, then silence. It hurt, but it did not undo me. I walked the dock, spoke with Joel at the marina office, handed him the envelope, and thanked him for keeping the log tight. He tied a red band to my lines himself, a quiet mark of vigilance. Small acts of care carry weight. The days settled into a rhythm. I took Serenity on short sails, out past the lighthouse and back. I invited old friends and new. I kept the legal folder tucked away, its presence steady but quiet. I cleaned lockers, coiled hoses, and polished the compass until it reflected my face. True north does not change. Caleb sent an email full of polished phrases, calling it a misunderstanding, hoping to rewrite the scene. I forwarded it to Elaine and let it rest. A line remains a line, even when flowers are drawn beside it. Gordon later told me Caleb had moved into a small rental. Emily stayed with a friend, quiet, steady, embarrassed. I felt sorrow, but sorrow is not defeat. I kept my Providence house. Each room spoke to me, asked me to stay another season. The kitchen asked me to cook with butter. The back bedroom asked me to open the window more often. I listened, I stayed. Peace deepened. I read books. I ate at a diner with old friends. I watched a neighbor's dog chase its tail until it fell, grinning. I whispered, "I don't need them anymore. I have myself." It was not bitter. It was true. Then I added softly, "I am free." Emily came for photographs and a quilt Helen had made. She looked older. She cried quietly. I put my hand on her shoulder. We did not fix everything, but we did not break more either. She left with the quilt, and I sat at the kitchen table touching the dent in the wood where Helen once dropped a cup. I smiled. Weeks later, I walked past a community center and took a flyer about a youth boat building class. They needed volunteers who knew wood, tools, and patience. I pinned it to my refrigerator. The magnet clicked. It felt like a new tide coming in. That night, sitting on my porch as the street lights blinked on, I thought about what I had learned. Family is not blood that drains you. Family is respect that sustains you. Truth stands longer than performance. Self-respect is not negotiable. I touched the card in my wallet where I had written my own rules. Be clear, be kind. Say no early. Say yes to the right things. Trust the compass. Call things what they are. The morning air carried that kind of chill that wakes you gently, not harshly, but with a reminder that life keeps moving forward whether we like it or not. A month had passed since the storm on the yacht, and the rhythm of my days had taken on a new steadiness, the kind that feels earned. The harbor outside my window still glittered under the early sun, the boats rocking lightly, and Serenity was there, my yacht, my vessel of lessons. I had decided she would remain mine, not as a trophy, but as a witness. Once every quarter, she would sail for more than leisure. She would carry veterans, men my age who had given pieces of themselves to this country, some walking with canes, some carrying memories heavier than their bags. I had already spoken to the marina about chartering her for those trips. I wanted that deck to carry laughter, old stories, and maybe even a few songs carried by the sea breeze. That thought alone filled me with peace. At night, my world slowed to the glow of a single lamp in my living room. I would sit in my old armchair, the fabric worn smooth under my hands, and I'd open a book. On the table beside me, Helen's wedding photo stood in its frame, the brass edges catching the light just right. Sometimes, without thinking, I would whisper to her, "We did the right thing, love. We drew the line where it needed to be drawn." Those words settled me, like prayer, like an anchor keeping me steady. The lessons of these weeks wrote themselves quietly into my bones. Family, I realized, is not an entitlement stamped by birth. Family is respect, day after day, word after word. Without respect, blood is just a coincidence. I jotted a note one evening on a scrap of paper and pinned it above my desk. Dignity is a boundary you draw once and keep. I read it every morning. It wasn't for anyone else. It was for me, the man who had been tested, the man who had stood his ground. Word reached me of Caleb's new troubles. He had been suspended at work, not because of me, not because of my doing, but because of himself. The marina incident had spilled into his company's whispers. Code of conduct, they said. I imagined him sitting in a small rental apartment near Pawtucket, blinds drawn, pride dented. Choices have weight, and sometimes they come down heavier than we expect. Emily had messaged me once, asking to meet. Just us. I read it slowly, my heart both aching and resolute. I replied with kindness, but also with firmness. If you want to work on your marriage, try counseling. I cannot be your banker, and I cannot be your scapegoat. I wish you peace, but not at the cost of my own. After that, silence. And silence, I found, can be merciful. My life, though, did not stay small. I began to step into places I had once overlooked. At church, I found myself drawn to the bulletin board near the fellowship hall, the one cluttered with flyers for bake sales, youth trips, and community service. One bright green sheet caught my eye. Scholarship Fund for Technical Training. Volunteers, welcome. That evening, I signed my name, pledged $1,000 each month, and asked if the scholarship could bear Helen's name. The Helen Foundation Scholarship, I said, and the words carried a softness and a pride all at once. I wanted her name spoken by young people she would never meet, her legacy carried in their futures. On my desk at home, I placed my father's old pocket watch, its silver scratched and aged. I wound it once just to hear its steady tick. That watch had outlasted 3 generations, and its voice was clear. The real wealth is time and the way you live it. Every morning now, I glance at it before I step out. It kept me honest. It reminded me not to waste a minute on bitterness. Life had slowed, but it had also deepened. I walked the shoreline often, the wind crisp on my face, gulls crying above. Children played near the benches, their laughter rising with the breeze. Some days I sat and watched them, remembering Emily as a little girl, her hair flying as she ran to me, arms wide. I allowed myself to remember without drowning in it. That was growth. One evening, as the sky melted into silver and the water mirrored it back, I spoke aloud, not for anyone to hear, but for myself. I don't need their apology, I said. The words came softly but firmly. I have my life and the peace that comes with telling the truth. That was the heart of it. I did not need to rewrite what had happened. I only needed to live rightly from here on. If a letter of apology ever comes, I know now I will not answer. Silence will be my reply, not out of cruelty, but out of dignity. Boundaries remain boundaries because they are not crossed, even by sentiment. And so, the lessons have settled. For parents, the truth is plain. Give what you can, but never surrender your self-respect. Love your children, but do not let that love be turned into chains. For children, another truth. Gratitude is not lip service. It is action. It is respect. It is the way you carry the name you were given. And for all of us, in this modern world where money speaks louder than it should, we must remember, character is wealth that cannot be taken, stolen, or erased. As I close this chapter of my life, I carry one last reflection. I have finally found the place where I belong. Not because of a house or a yacht, not because of accounts or paper. I belong where my truth is spoken, where my dignity is honored, and where my peace is my own. And every day that passes now is proof that I chose right. The water glimmers silver under the moon, and I stand with the pocket watch in my hand, listening to its heartbeat. My father's, my own, perhaps even Helen's. A line of truth runs through it all, unbroken. And that, I think, is the only inheritance that matters. The compass needle never wavered, and for the first time in years, neither did I. The story has come to an end. I hope it has brought you valuable lessons and insights. If you enjoyed this content, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next video. Goodbye, and see you again.